just go in. Sorry. So when Michael proposed to me to close this workshop, my initial plan was to finally give to you the answer to the question, what's the text really? Then I had to lower my ambitions, and I was studying Elena's text, and actually I thought that. I thought that if Whitehead says that the safest general characterization of the European philosophical tradition is that it consists of a series of footnotes to Plato, if my presentation can be at least a footnote to Helena, I would be very, very happy. So this. So just it's not a joke, actually, it's true. So this is the book I'm referring to, and especially it's a very, very rich book, very theoretical one, and especially I'm citing this chapter, so the chapter modeling digital text, which is in my opinion the best text about textual models that I have found. So thank you, Elena. And it's very complex, and I hope that I don't miss something in relating what I have understood about that. I want to start with a problem. So the problem that we have seen today many, many times, and that is represented here. This is the first edition of the Education Sentimentale that I own, so I wanted to photograph it all the time as I can. And this is just leave the torch. So what does it mean that there are the same text? So this question is obvious. We have talked about it for 2 days, and actually it goes from here. So here is actually easy to understand what does it mean that it is the same text. Ce fut comme une apparition. Ce fut comme une apparition. But what does it mean when we have something like Il Capitolo dei Frati? Is it the same text? So what's the text? You can represent the same problem in this way. So this is the same text, and you have different representations of the same text. So I used to write in Markdown, and then you have the Pandoc JSON. So this is the abstract syntax tree of Pandoc. Here you have the TEI Lite export of Pandoc, the Pandoc JSON here, which is it's quite messy but interesting. And an HTML representation. So this is the same text. I think what I'm going to do is that I'm treating Il Capitolo dei Frati or that in the same level. So those are the same texts. What does it mean? This is the question that I want to ask. And so Elena has an answer. In this chapter, Elena makes the difference. And so what I'm simplifying Elena's framework, because what I like about this framework is that it's not binary. You try to put this stuff in a line. So this is from the book, Elena's book, and so Elena doesn't oppose materiality to immateriality. She puts them in a line which is continuous, and she shows that so the texts are between materiality and immateriality. You can go in the immateriality part, and you have something like works, and then on the material part, you have documents. And so we can guess something like, okay, when you think about the same text, you are more on this part. And when you think about the 4, 5, 1,000 possible texts, there are manifestations of this, and they are more there. I'm simplifying Elena's framework. So works and documents. to make it simple. On the one hand, and so Éducation sentimentale, it's a work, and this is the same text as a work, and but you can have many documents with the Éducation sentimentale. Actually, Elena's framework is more complex because you have some dimension of the text that are more on the side of immateriality, so the linguistic dimension, the semantic dimension, the literary dimension, and some others more on the materiality, the ecological dimension, artistic, and so on. So you really see this framework. So of the two natures of text, materiality and immateriality. So it is the latter that allows for their transmission. Text can be transmitted, that is transcribed and therefore made material, because they are also immaterial. And there you have a wonderful example that you give, because I was asking, okay, is it true? And what does she mean about material and material? What is immaterial and what is material? And here your example makes it clear that it's more complicated than just that, because the example is the maximum immateriality is offered by the category unclaimed text on the web, which refers to those texts which are presented without any reference to the material editions from which they are presumably drawn. So you are referring actually to something which is a document, an unclaimed text on the web, but less a document than other documents. So these two elements of materiality and immateriality in this example, in my opinion, are a little mixed up, and this is what's interesting in my way of seeing the thing. So in all this stuff, what's a model? And I really like this approach. So a model, which I mean, Elena is building on the work of McCarthy and so on. So, so a model is a text is a model that, among the facts selected by the reader, includes the verbal content of the document. So this is the answer of what a text. So a text is a model, and it's just about what you select. And in order for it to be a text, you have to select between the stuff that you select, you have to select the verbal content of the document. And here it comes to me the relationship with Barrad and the idea of selection and the idea of agential cut. In my opinion, those two are related. So in which ways this is where my footnote comes. I arrive at that. So my question is, are we talking about an ideal text in this framework? Is it possible? Is this immaterial part referring to an ideal text? So in part, yes. Ideal, at least, so in the sense that it is immaterial. In this sense, the work is not a physical object. Okay, we come back to this opposition between works and documents, but a combination of the immaterial dimensions of all the documents and all the texts that derive from them that have enough in common, closely related bibliographically, to be defined as the same thing. So, you know, in this definition, you can have the feeling that Elena is saying that the text is ideal, but it's not, in my opinion. You will tell me if I interpret your text in the good way. Because actually, it is all that the documents has in common. So she's not saying that there is an ideal Platonic idea of text. She's saying that this idea is actually produced by the materiality. Okay, I understand well. Okay, half of my presentation is done. So, in fact, no edition will ever be able to account for all possible facts of a work. And this is the idea of the selection. So even here, you could think that we are thinking about an ideal text, and you cannot say everything about it. But it's not that. It's always that you have a multiplicity of materialities, and these materialities, you can combine them together in order to produce different material ideas. So they are ideal, but they are derived from the materiality. So this is where my footnote comes, just adding this precision, which is in the text, in Elena's text. This is why it's not, it is really just a footnote. And it is how we define abstraction, because you can think that a text like a model is a way to say, okay, there is the idea, the Platonic idea, and then you select just something and you put something away. You lose something. But it's not like that. So Pasquinelli, in his book, The Eye of the Master, says abstraction always operates within given material constraints and through them. So abstraction is not ideal at all. Abstraction is the most material thing that we can do. Abstraction means that we focus on what we have, and we don't focus in what we don't have. So it's really the Marxist gesture of looking to the material stuff that surround you. This is abstraction. It's not about thinking to Plato's idea. It's about putting your hands there and saying, okay, I can work with that stuff. So I make abstraction of what is not there. So this is the idea of abstraction, and here she comes. I just added the picture of Karen Barad, and especially I want to use her framework in order to explain what I just said, which is how concepts emerge. So I was speaking about the ideal text. So but we can speak about the author concept, the variant concept, error concept we were speaking during the break. So what's an author? How the concept of author emerges? This is the question. And Karen Barrett's idea, which I found really, really compelling, is that concepts are material configurations of stuff, really stuff. And she explained that with so she's based on Bohr, what she calls Bohr physics philosophy or philosophy physics. I don't know the order. And she starts with the Gedanke experiment of Bohr during the 20s, which is very interesting. The nature of the electron, is it a particle or a wave? Bohr made just a Gedanke experiment. He couldn't realize that. The experiment has been realized in the 90s. And yes, Bohr got it right. But as you know, quantum physics is just a formalism, so you don't need actually experiment. You don't know actually what it means. And Karen Barrett tried to explain what it means. So as you know, in this experiment, you have at the same time, to make it easy, at the same time an electron is a particle and a wave. And actually, it's very strange because you have different patterns. If you look on which path the electron pass or not, you make the same thing. And then what is strange is that even if you look afterward, the pattern change. So this is kind of crazy. And Karen Barrad explained Bohr experiment saying, actually, it is because the concept of particle and the concept of wave are the physical experimental apparatus. The concept of particle has no meaning outside the material configuration of the apparatus. The concept is a result of the apparatus. So you cannot, it means nothing particle. Particle can mean something just in a physical apparatus. And the physical apparatus which allows the concept of particle is just incompatible to the physical apparatus that allows the concept of wave. So you cannot not think both of them together. It's not physically possible to think to these two concepts together. This is what I want to say, that text, the ideal text we were talking about, is the same thing. The ideal text is the production of a particular physical configuration. And the same thing is for the author, or variation, or error. You cannot have a theoretical concept without a physical configuration that allows for its meaning. So, you know, the little quote, Bohr's argument for the indeterminable nature of measurement in interactions is based on his insight that concepts are defined by the circumstances required for their measurement. You can use it in addition. Literary concepts exist only based on the circumstances required for their appearance, because we don't really measure that. That is, theoretical concepts are not ideational in character. They are specific physical arrangements. And so I want to propose this idea of the text, the ideal text bottom-up. So how can we apply it to the theory of text? So the idea is that the same text is, in a set of documents, is the material set of rules which allows, starting from any document, to produce the same text. So this is the point. What our idea of text is the set of formal, I can add, rules that allows you, starting from different text, to arrive to the same goal. Which means, actually, I was speaking with Jocelyn Morvin, who is working with me in Rouen, and he suggested a thing that is really interesting for me because it resonates with that. He told me, you should not teach people TEI, you should teach people XSL. And actually, this is a very interesting way of thinking about that. The important thing is not how you tag your document, is the rules. And many people have talked about that. I realized that when I make the XSLT. Actually, because it's when you define the rules to pass from a document to another that you are modeling the text. This is the real model. This is the real ideal model, which is very material. It's an algorithm, actually. So the ideal text can be defined as an algorithm, a set of rules. And actually, you can change your algorithm. You can do this even with a non-digital thing. How I do to pass from this to a representation of this text here on, so I make abstraction, but this abstraction that I made are just a set of rules saying, okay, you take the E, you put the E in some way and so on, and I have all the rules and I arrive to the same text. If you have a text with many huge variants, so the rules will be more complex. And Elena, so this is why I loved your methodology, because actually it was that. You were defining your method is a formal algorithmic definition of what il capitolo dei frati is, like an ideal material text. So this is the point. I have 5 minutes. 8. I will finish. Before. Wonderful. So yes, the idea is that the footnote goes saying that perhaps the term immateriality is a little misleading. So I completely agree with the framework, with Elena's framework, but I think that we have to pay attention to how we explain to people what we mean when we use immateriality, and I prefer saying that everything is material, because the idea of immateriality can lead to this Platonic way of thinking about text, which actually is very difficult to struggle with that view. It's so present in our souls that we immediately think, okay, and then there is the text. And actually what is interesting is that this need for this Platonic idea is also based on very specific and peculiar economic structure. I don't know if we talked about the author. I don't know if you know the wonderful book of by Mark Rose, Authors and Owners. And what he shows is that actually the idea of author is the result, among other things, of some particular economical stakes, and not how to pay the authors, but how to pay the publishers. This was the stake. So you have a publishing house saying, okay, if the guy from Amsterdam is taking my stuff and is publishing it half the price, I have a problem. So how can I justify that the guy of Amsterdam is not allowed to do that? Let's invent something. The text, a particular way of formulating things. How can it work? So the very concept was born for a particular material, and very Marxist in this case. Circumstances. So okay, everything is material. What does? Why is it useful? I guess because it allows us to put into brackets, or to put into parentheses, or at least question the split between meaning and presentation. Which is another thing on which Elena has worked. So what is meaning and what is presentation? But it depends. Because actually, I don't know who was saying that in another GREN workshop. Actually, just the XML file with the tags is a presentation. Also, so what's presentation and what is not? And in my feeling is that I love seeing just text. And this is my favorite presentation. If I can see just a black screen with for example, with my email on Neomat, this is the wonderful thing to me, and is a presentation. It's not something different. So at the same, and meaning is always a presentation, and presentation is always meaningful, and both of them, it's very difficult to separate. And so how you separate them, I think, Laura, you will agree, it's an agential cut. So I just choose where to put the line, and saying, okay, I make an abstraction, which is very, very concrete, and I decide, okay, this is presentation and this is meaningful in this kind of environment because I made my cut here. But this is important to know that I made the cut, which is not saying that everything is the same thing. It is that you have the real, but the real is what emerges from the actions. Doesn't mean that you can create whatever real you want. It's not constructivist at all. You cannot say that an electron is an elephant. It is either a particle or a wave, just because we are in the world of alternative facts and so on. So it doesn't mean that. No, it's very important, because this idea of multiplicity can lead to constructivism, radical constructivism, and so on. But we are, Barad says that she is a realist. This is a realist approach. So you don't have hierarchies between different approaches to text, which is another important thing, in my opinion. You don't have the best way to, we agree about that, all of us, I guess, but perhaps not all of us. I mean, the important thing is how you specify your approach to text, which doesn't mean that all the approaches are on the same level, that all approaches are legitimate, no, but there are many approaches which are legitimate in the same level if you specify your material circumstances. And perhaps also that making this effort would allow us to define ideal text in a formal model, in a formal way. So if I say that il capitolo dei frati is, as a text, the set of rules that are specified in your protocol, actually I have a sound, coherent, replicable definition of the ideal text, which is not the case if I adopt a Lachmanian model where the ideal text is just something I have to imagine, but I have no way to say, am I closer or not? Or I have no way or not that much. If this definition is formal, I have il capitolo dei frati, Elena's capitolo dei frati, because probably we could also define another protocol, a little different, and find another capitolo dei frati and compare both of them. But with sound and clear and formal approaches, it won't be just speculative words. And so this, in my opinion, is the approach that could lead to the possibility of multiplicity and plurality of approaches, of vision of the words, and so on, but that allows us to avoid the n'importe quoi, I don't know how you say it in English, whatever, yeah, whatever. Yeah, meaningless. I mean, because this is really a problem. The problem is we should avoid the idea of all interpretations are the same, all interpretations are possible. No, not at all. But there are a plurality of interpretation possible if you define formally in physics the physical apparatus that you use to observe, in our case, the set of rules that allows you to put together different documents. Thank you very much.